Good morning, everyone. It's morning time here in Sedona, and welcome back to Insights at DDLynn Designs, a unique twist in the art of wire. This is DDLynn, and I'm really excited to share with you a different concept in wrapping sea glass. The one I did a week or so ago was on wrapping it, not weaving it. This is going to be all weaved frame. And as you can see, this is a lavender sea glass. This is out of Maine. And the shapes and, curvature and, like, for example, on this side of the stone, it dips in. On this side of the stone, it comes out. You can see how it's coming out. So what we've done here is we've created a weaved frame, and then we've used the tail wires, if you will, the core wires, to connect to the body of that frame by interlocking them and weaving them into the weaved pattern. So you can do any pattern that you want, but I want to give a big shout out to Dina in Hawaii. If you can see these beautiful, beautiful pieces of sea glass, these are right off the beaches of Hawaii, and she beach combs herself. She collects it all, and she was so generous by sending these to me as a gift. So I just want to say, again, thank you so much, Dina. We've had a lot of really wonderful correspondence. So anyways, let's get started. Don't forget to hit the bell. Please subscribe, and comments are super great. I'd be happy to get back with you on any questions you have. You can follow my Facebook, which is DDLynn Designs. That's DDLYNN. And that's also my webpage and my Instagram. So the first thing that I've done is I've decided on the stone that I want to use, and I'm going to move these out of the way so we don't have distraction. And I've got this really delicate, beautiful piece of green sea glass. And if you can see here, it's got this concave shape, and the lip of it comes up and over. So I've decided that, this could be front or back. It doesn't matter because it is double-sided. So you could wear it either way. So I'm going to be using this pretty little piece of very thin sea glass. It's just so pretty. You can see that it's been rolling around on the ocean and the sand floor for quite some time because it's just beautifully frosted and super smooth. So I've measured my stone, or sea glass, and it's approximately 1.5 inches. This is going to give me a guide of how much weaving I need to do. And I'll add if I need more or take away. So don't be afraid if you have too much. You can also always unravel. Because this is so thin, I'm going to be using a 21 gauge square wire, and I've cut myself 4 pieces, and I've cut them 8 inches long. I've also created a center mark so I know where I'm going to start. And again, because this is such a thin piece of glass, I'm also going to be using a 30 gauge weaving wire. I don't use this wire a lot for thicker pieces of stone or whatever I'm using. But because this is such a thin piece, I'll be using 30 gauge wire with my 21 gauge square. So sorry about the squeak. I'm going to scoot in and do my dangdest to stay in frame. So I've got a piece of wire on here I need to take off because I think I added it to, nope, that should be good. So determining how much wire you need is really, to me, a head game. Because I'm going to be weaving each side, I'm going to cut myself about, I'm going to say 5 feet for right now. So let me get my snippers. And I'm going to take my wire, and this is for beginners, and I'm going to just fold it in half. It's very long, so you don't really need to see this. I'm just folding it in half to find my center so that I have equal amounts of wire on each side. And then I'm going to grab my marked wire, and I'm just going to create a loop. Where is did I grab the wrong one? I think I did. There we go. And I'm just going to create a loop at the center point of this wire where I bent it in half. And again, you can do any pattern that you want. And I'm going to do 10 wraps. So I have a lot of wire here and I'm hitting my camera. So I'm going to wrap this 10 times. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, because this is 20 gauge, if you're just 21 gauge, if you're just starting out, it's a soft wire, so you really have to watch how you're yanking and pressing down on that wire. And I need to come to my center point. So I'm going to do this pattern just so that you can see what I'm going to do. And then I'll continue it off camera. So I'm going to take my base wire down here that's coming up underneath, and I'm going to fold it over the top. So I'm going over wires 1 and 2, and because this is square wire and it's so thin, you have to make sure it doesn't twist on its edge. There are 4 edges on your square wire, and you can definitively see the edge. And then I'm going to wrap twice. So I'm going around it twice, then I'm going to bring in between 1 and 2 that wire again. And your wires will shift, so don't worry about that, which is why you want to mark them. Then I'm going to pick up my 3rd wire, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go over wires 2 and 3, in between wires 1 and 2, back over wires 2 and 3. So I've made 2 full rotations, and come in between wires 2 and 3. Then I'm going to pick up my 4th wire, and I'm going to do the same thing. So this time I'm going to go over wires 3 and 4, come back in between 2 and 3, over wires 3 and 4. And I'm going to now switch sides, but I want to secure this wire off. So I'm going to come around the top, and I'm coming in between 3 and 4. Come all the way over 4 and let this wire come out the back. So now I'm going to turn my work around. I have to get out of frame here to move this long, long piece of wire. And I'm reversing it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to push these together. I don't want this rolling on its edge, so I'm actually turning it away from the opposite direction. And I'm now, because I'm coming underneath, so I'm coming underneath this time instead of over the top, I'm going to come in between wires 2 and 3, over wires 1 and 2 twice. Then I'm going to come back in between wires 1 and 2. And when you're first starting off in this beautiful ancient art of wire, this is for beginners, your brain's going to get a little confused when you're going in the opposite direction. So just take your time. And then I'm going to now come back over wires 2 and 3. And I'm going to do that 2 times. Then I'm going to come back in between. I'm sorry, that was wires, 2 and 3. I'm going to come back in between 2 and 3, and I'm going to go over wires 3 and 4, in between wires 2 and 3, back over the top twice. And any pattern you want to use. And then I'm coming out the top, and I'm going to come back around to the bottom. So this is my pattern. Now I'm going to do 10 wraps again. So I'm coming out underneath the bottom, and I'm going to wrap this number 1 wire, if you're counting from the top, 10 times. And now I'm going to turn this around in my best working position. So I'm working on the back now. So that's 10. Now I'm going to turn my work around, and I'm back on the front. So this wire that was on top is coming out the back. I'm going to bring it all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to wrap 10 times. So I'm always going to be giving you tips, tricks, and ideas, techniques to accelerate your journey. I think those are really important to pay attention, not just making something, but how things are done. So this is my pattern. So now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to do it one more time, and then I'm going to go off camera and finish it to my 1.5 inch mark. So this is the top, so my front. I'm going to go over wires 1 and 2 twice. And for beginners, watch that your wires don't squeeze too close together. Then in between wires 1 and 2, over wires 2 and 3 twice. In between wires 2 and 3. Oops, wrong way. Did it again. I need to spread these out. This wire is so thin it's hard to see sometimes. Then I'm back at the top, and I'm going to go over wires 3 and 4. And I just realized I came in the wrong way again. It happens. Twice. Then I'm going to come down to the bottom, roll off this last wire 1 time, so I'm on number 4, and I'm going to wrap 10 times. I just saw a little gap there. Let's come out of that. My wire here buckled, so I'm just tightening it up. So let's do this side. So I'm coming out the back. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the top. So I'm going to go over wires 1 and 2 twice. In between wires 1 and 2, over wires 2 and 3 twice. In between wires 2 and 3, over wires 3 and 4 twice, and then I'm going to wrap around wire 4, 1 full rotation, and I'm coming out the back, and I'm going to do 10 wraps around my base wire. So I'm always going to turn my work around to be in my best working position. So that's my 10th, and I'm going to turn my work around. So this is my front, so you can see where we're going with this. And I'll be right back. I'm going to weave up to my 1.5 inch mark, and which gives me about 3/4 of an inch on each side. And I'll be right back. So I'm back, and I stopped a little bit in between where I wanted to go. Maybe that's not the right word. Instead of doing a full inch and a half, I decided I want to go ahead and start. Excuse me, my voice is very dry. It's Sedona. I wanted to start pre-shaping my stone and seeing how this is going to line up and how much more wire I'm going to need. So one of the little tips I want to give for beginners is go ahead and go in and very gently tap down on your wire, and I'm not pushing super hard, just to really settle that wire in, nestle it into those core wires. So let's take a look, and I haven't decided if I'm going to start here or if I'm going to start here, and I think I'm going to start there. So because there's a tip, if you will, so there's a tip on the stone, and if you recall, pardon me, excuse me, I marked my wire in the middle, and how I know where my center is because of the diagonal of each side of this weave in the direction that it's going. So I know this is my center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my round nose, and I want to get my 6-step bail making pliers. If you've never seen these, there's 6-step bail making pliers or looping pliers, and there are 6 steps from 1 across to 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to get the smallest, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this, just pre-shape it. I just want to set myself up a little bit and see how this is going to line up on this stone, or sea glass, I should say. So I'm just going to give it a little bend in the center. And this is the tricky part when you're wrapping sea glass. And I'm really glad I used 21 gauge and not 20 because it's so thin. I don't need that much. This is the tricky part because you want to start shaping it. So I'm going to hold firmly, and I'm just going to push it up here to the side. So I know that I want this to bend over here. You want to follow the shape of your stone. So I'm going to bend it up. And we'll be making adjustments. So I'm holding really firmly with my left hand, and I'm pushing the stone as I'm holding really firmly on the framed wire to shape it around that stone. So I'm going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to hold this side real firmly, and I'm going to follow the shape of the stone. So I know I'm going to need more wire, as I suspected I would, but I just kind of wanted to start pre-shaping it so that you can see where I'm going. So I'm going to go ahead and weave up a little bit more, and I'm probably not going to do 10 wraps around the base because I can see that it would probably bring it out too far. So I had actually stopped at 5 wraps down here because I knew I was getting very close to my 1.5 inch mark. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be right back. So I added another wrap of this pattern on each side, and I wanted to give you a little tip or technique. So to keep your wires from crossing over, just go ahead and bow them out. I'm leaving a gap because I'm thinking of bringing my wires through. I haven't decided. So as you can see, we're following the shape of this stone, and because it's double-sided, you can have either side as your front or back. I would certainly sell it as a double-sided sea glass piece of wire art. So I'm going to put this back in here, and we're going to be making adjustments anyways. I'm going to be pressing this wire in more here where the stone dips in. And I'll be doing that in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, bow your wires out. Just put your thumb there as you're pressing against these top wires. So I have my fingers up here and my thumb down there. It helps for you to have room to work with your wires. And then I'm going to pinch the top. So I'm just pinching it with my fingers. and getting as tight and closely to that because it's a very wavy shape. As I mentioned before, this side flips up. Can you see how it's flipping up there? So that's actually going to be sticking out. I really like that though. I love all the shape in it. And then I'm going to take my wire from the back, and it can be either side, and I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. I'm going to bring that down. Make sure I got the right wire. I don't. I'm just going to cross them over. And then I'm going to wrap it around the neck. And if you have to, and here's another tip, go ahead and get some masking tape and tape your glass or stone if you're working with a stone. It doesn't have to be sea glass. Go ahead and tape all the way around it to hold it in place for yourself so you get the support that you need. And I haven't cut off my weaving wires yet because I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. Let me see if I have a long enough piece here. So here's what I mean. Go ahead and tape this down, and that's actually not long enough. So I need a longer piece. So let me get a longer piece. This should work. So you're just gonna, and here's another tip if you're new to wire wrapping. When you buy masking tape, you want to ask for a low residue. I have found that this is the best for me because even painter's tape sticks more. So all I'm doing is securing my wire frame around my beach glass so that I can hold on to my work. And then I can really pinch it in. Let's take off this little tail there. So what I'm going to do now, and you want to be mindful that you have your flat side up on your square wire unless you're using round. And I'm going to take this wire over, making sure my flat side is up. And if you find that it's turning on you, just get it up. Just turn it in the opposite direction because it wants to roll on that edge. And then I'm going to take the next one, and I don't draw, you guys, so I do everything as I go. Everything is freestyle. And I'm holding this together, and I'm going to go around this way. So I'm going in the opposite direction. And then I'm just going to do a gentle cinch. I don't want to squeeze too hard because I don't want to smash these wires too close together. Then I'm thinking I might have to cut off this weaving wire. And by the way, I cut way too much wire. But that's okay. I save every little bit of scrap. And I'm going to bring this wire over the back, and I'm going to let it sit there. Just making some corrections and adjustments. Want to cinch that in a little bit tighter. There we go. Make sure I'm on my flat side. So whatever direction you find your square wire turning, you just go in the opposite direction, and that will bring that flat side up. So I'm straightening these out because I'm going to get ready to start doing my bail. And I think I am definitely going to snap these weaving wires off. So if you haven't learned this technique, you hold your piece very, very firmly and you just do a wiggle, jiggle, wiggle, jiggle, and the wire will snap clean off. And I'm going to save my wire. It looks like I got them tangled together. I keep all my scrap wire in envelopes and I mark them with the gauge. So I just wanted to give you an idea. So this is my big, huge envelope. And I just put my scrap wire in there. And anytime I'm working where I need a little piece of wire, I just go ahead and pull that out of my envelope. So I'm holding really firmly and I just snap that off. And I'm just going to coil it up and stick it in my little envelope. Okay, so I've been thinking about what I want to do. As I mentioned, everything is kind of freestyle for me, and I'm not going to be coming through the neck because I changed up as I was thinking about it. So I'm going to start straightening these wires out the back. These two are going to come forward. So your front wires here, we're going to move them out of the way. I'm just bringing them forward out of my way so I can start to prepare for my bail. And you can do any pattern you want for your bail. Just want to line these up. I think I need to straighten them up a little bit more. Now, if you've never straightened your wire, you can use pliers. And you just go up and down that wire just to straighten it out. I remember when I was first starting out, I had all these weird bends, and I don't know where I saw it, but somebody said how to straighten your wire with your pliers, especially square wire. And I thought, I will never forget that. So tips, tricks, and techniques, I'm telling you, it's everything in this ancient art. So I'm just kind of lining everything up, seeing the direction that I want it to go. Is that my outside? That's my back wire, right? Sorry, I think out loud, you guys. So I'm going to be doing a 2-wire weave. I'm not going to be going into this in detail. I have a tutorial that I did on that. I'm going to be making a 2-wire weaved bail. And I need this guy to get straighter. Okay, that's better. These are going to be our decorative wires on the front and the back. And I may tuck these in. I haven't decided. So I definitely want to bring this one around to the back as well. Okay. I think that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and grab myself 2 pieces of wire. And I'm going to cut myself about, let's see. I know I'm out of camera, you guys. I'm measuring 1, 2, I'm going to say 3. Probably too much, but I'd rather have more than run out. Of course, you can always add wire. And if you ever want to see a tutorial on how to add wire, certainly let me know what you'd like to see. So I'm going to fold my wire in half again, but this time I'm going to cut it in the middle. And I am going to come from underneath. And I'm going to do a wire on each side, and I'm going to be crisscrossing them over. So I'm going to do 2 full rotations. That's 1, that's 2. Just pulling that wire up in the back. And if you find your wires are in the way, just push them down. And I'm going to slide this all the way down. And I'm going to come over this wire. I still want that a little bit straighter in there. 1 time. So I'm coming over wire 1 and 2, and I'm going to come in between, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to do the same thing on this side now. I've got my wire underneath. I'm going to wrap over my outside wire 2 full rotations. This is 1 and 2. And I'm going to slide it down. This wire here is in the way. So I'm just sliding that down. How did you end up in there? I need to pull that out of there. So I'm going to cut that off. Nope. Did I grab the wrong one? No, I did not. There we go. That little baby tail was hooking up in there. So that's the back. I'm watching a rabbit out my front door. And I'm going to straighten this up a little bit here. I'm going to go over these 2 wires 1 full time, come back in between, and now both of my wires are coming out the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross them over. This is a figure 8 weave in a sense, but the benefit of doing this, and I just kind of figured this out one night a couple years ago because I got tired of the figure 8s always sliding and really having to work with them so much. So I've taken this wire that was coming out the top, just like this one, in between the center. And I've just brought it out the other side. And I'm going to, this one's coming out the top, I'm going to go in between. And I'm going to pull it over to the other side. So they're actually crisscrossing each other. So now each wire that was on this side is now on that side in the opposite direction. So I'm coming underneath with both. I'm going to come in between the 2 wires on the outside over the inside wire, so that'd be wire 2. Then I'm coming underneath. I'm going to go around wire 1, complete full rotation, back over wires 1 and 2, in between wires 1 and 2, and I'm coming out the top again. And I'm going to cinch that down. And I need to spread my wires out. I just caught that I didn't do that. So I'm going to do it on this side again, and then I'm going to complete my bail. Now here's a tip for bails. So I'm coming underneath before I tell you about the bail, wrapping around wire 2, coming back up underneath. I'm going to go over wire 1 and over wires 1 and 2 again, because they're 2 separate wires, and back in between. So both of them are coming out the top, and I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to crisscross. So the wires are coming out the top. I'm bringing them through the middle and over to the opposite side. Wires coming out the top, bring it through the middle and over to the opposite side. So here's a tip for beginners on how to know how long you want your bail. And I need a drink of water. If you don't want a big bail, rule of thumb is you want to weave 1 inch. And why you want to do a minimum of 1 inch is because you have to remember you're bending this in half. So your bail is actually only going to be a 1/2 inch long. So if you want a bigger bail, then you do the same thing. You go for more length. But I'm going to be making, because of the size of this stone, a 1 inch or maybe 1 1/8 of an inch bail. So I'm in between. This is the last time I'm going to do this. So both of them are crossing over the other side. And it's the same thing as before. I'm coming in between wires 1 and 2, over wire 2, back up underneath, coming all the way around wire 1, over wire 1 and 2, in between wire 1 and 2, and I'm at the top. And this is such a fantastic way to do a figure 8 weave without your wire sliding up, by using 2 wires. So I'm going over wire 2 completely, back up underneath, over wire 1, over wires 1 and 2, back up in between wires 1 and 2, and both wires are coming out the top. Okay, I'm going to go off camera and complete my bail, and I'll be right back. So I wanted to pop back in really quick. I decided to add a bead, so I'm going to be using this darling little moonstone. I don't know if you can see it. It's a little faceted moonstone. So I wanted to show you how to do that if you haven't worked with 2 wires to add a bead. And if you find that you don't have enough space, you can always spread your wires out. So that's another really good tip. So the hole on this is so small, it's really hard to see. So I'm going to run my wire through. Now, my wires are coming out the top again. I haven't crisscrossed them. I'm going to do that after I run my wires through and slide my bead down. So I'm going to have 2 wires, and I'll show you here in a minute, coming through. And I'm just pulling them, and you want to kind of go slow. You don't want to kink them up. So I'm just holding the bead in the middle as I'm pulling each side to even it up. So I'm just holding it, hold the bead, and pull the wire. Hold the bead and pull the wire. Now, should be able, and you want to keep a good loop. So don't let your wire straighten up too much as you're pulling your bead in. You want to keep a pretty good loop because this is really thin wire and it can kink up on you pretty quick. So I've pulled those wires together and they're both coming out in the opposite direction. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm coming in between the center wires. So they're already crossed over. I don't need to cross them over again. And then I'm just going to come back in between, over, and around. Now this time, because I have a gap that I created for the space of the bead taking up, so it took up a lot of space, which means my wires are not going to be as close together here. And I'm also coming off on more of an angle. I'm going to wrap 2 times on that outside wire, not the normal one, so that it lines up with the bead, if any of that makes sense. And then I'm coming back in the middle. So the same thing over on this side, coming underneath. I'm going to wrap over that number 2 wire, come up underneath, and I'm going to wrap 2 times around the outside. And you're going to really notice that this doesn't slide up a lot. It's really amazing. And it just makes such a pretty, I'm going to slide these up a little bit. Okay. It makes such a pretty weave for your bail. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll do a couple more. And then I'll show you how to shape the top. So I'm coming out the top, I'm going through the middle. Where am I at here? Oh, let me get that wire out of the way. And then I'm going to cross them over. So this one's coming out this side, and this one's coming out that side. And then it's going to be the same thing. So I'm back on the top, coming underneath in between the 2, out the back, 1 time over the outside wire, and over both wires, and in between. So they're coming out the top again. So I'm going to come up a little bit, and then I'll stop to show you how to shape your bail. So I'm right at my 1/2 inch mark, maybe just a little bit over. So this is really helpful when we're shaping our bail. I remember when I first started out 4 years ago, it was so hard to create symmetry. So what you're basically going to do is you're just going to bend your wires in. So whatever best working position is for you, you can do one at a time, and you just want to cross it to the center. So I'm just doing one at a time. Should have something like that. And then I'm going to turn it over so I'm in my best working position, so I feel like I'm getting equal symmetry. And see how I can see my center now? So I know I need to come over a little bit more, and then I'm just going to push that one to follow. Then I'm going to turn it around. And now you can center them up. So here's another really great tip. I'm just pulling them in, lining them up, making sure they're nice and centered. So you're going to get a felt pen, and you're going to mark the center. This will help you keep symmetry. So you're just going to mark the inside here and the inside there. So you want to look at that little mark that's in that V right there in the middle on the inside. And then what I do, some people use pliers, I don't, is I hold my thumb, and if your wires are in your way, just push them down. I hold my thumb and I just roll this wire. I'm holding very firmly. And I just roll or push this wire out of the way, and I follow. Same thing. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to hold my thumb there firmly, and I'm going to roll this wire out of the way, and then I'm going to line them up. And you should have pretty darn good symmetry. Don't worry about your top wires. So now we can complete our bail and start getting to work on our decorative design. And I'll be right back. When I get to the top, we'll go from there. Okay, so I wanted to show you, I love when things like this happens because it's an opportunity to really share with you. So I ran out of wire. So I want to show you, especially on very unique patterns, and especially when you're using 2 wires versus 1 wire going back and forth between all your core wires. So I knew I was going to run out of wire, so I crisscrossed over the center, and then I came to the outside. Now, instead of trying to go back in, I got my 2 pieces of scrap wire that I said I was going to save earlier, and I am going to cross them over in the center. At least I think that's what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm going to have to start on the outside. Sorry, you guys. So I'm going to start on the outside, and I'm going to bring my wire over and around these 2. So it's the same thing. And I'm not going to cut these off yet until I'm done getting it all back together. So I'm coming around this one, slide her down, and bringing it over these 2 and back in between. So both my 2 wires are coming out the top again. I got wires all over the place. Now I'm going to really cinch that down in the back, but I'm not going to cut it off yet. And then the same thing here. I'm going to make sure that's really cinched down. I'm going to get rid of that length because it's in my way, and I don't want to be hooking up on it as I'm coming around. So they're going to slide up a little bit until you get your first set of weaves done. So I'm in the middle, coming over the other side. It's the same thing. And this is the tricky part because it's not connected to its preceding wires. I'm going to have to hold on with my finger in the back. So they're crossing over each other, and you just want to watch. But this is really good because it helps us a lot as we're going along how to add wire. And I've crossed over, and now I'm on the inside of these 2 wires. And just watch that they don't slide too much until we can get a couple of patterns going. Then around these 2, coming out the top and back in the middle again. So this one in between these 2. And this is when I'm really cinching and pushing down. And I'll have much more control now. So both my wires are coming out the top. And you really can't tell I added wire. So I'm going to go ahead and complete up to the neck, and then we'll move on from there. So I finished my weaving up to the neck, and I want to show you a really cool technique. And I started doing this several years ago because I didn't like the standard look of the wire just going flat across. And I like a lot of dimension. So all I'm going to do is, you can use anything sharp or small. This is just a dental tool, and this has got a bend on it. So I noticed the tip was a little bent on it. So bear with me here a moment. This one's better. So these are just dental tools that I got at Harbor Freight. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to change this and give it a lot of dimension, and I'm just simply pushing in the middle the wires down. And it creates such a really cool look when we bend this bail. And I'm really pushing them in, right in the middle. And it just gives it almost like three-dimensional. Gives it a beautiful look. You can also straighten out your wires with these little dental tool picks. They're just great. Your weaving wire I'm referencing too. So isn't that cool? And it's really going to change it once we bend it over. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got both my wires coming out the middle, which is my longest. I think this one is. So I'm going to now just use one wire. And I'm just going to go over all of them a couple of times. And then this one wire on this side, the same thing. So they're coming out the opposite sides. And I'm not sure how long I want that neck, so I think what I'm going to do is just do a couple of more. As I mentioned, I just do things as I go. It's never planned. I'll have to show you this piece I just finished, and I love it. And where's this one at? Okay. If I have to, I'll do more weaving. So let me show you this piece I just finished. This is 100% freestyle. That's how I do my best work. I used a 12 gauge round wire to create the frame. I used a 16 gauge square to cover the frame off in the back. And then I used 18 gauge and 16 gauge. So I have a 16 gauge round. I have a 20 gauge square wrapping this beautiful lilac faceted amethyst. This is Brazilian amethyst up here. This is Heliodor. I really encourage you to look that up. Very, very expensive. I did a channel wrap down around the bottom, and then I added a beautiful piece of green tourmaline. And then over here, I set a faceted citrine, and citrine is also known as yellow topaz. It is the same exact stone. And then I just did a lot of different diversity and variation in my design. So I just thought I'd share that with you. 4 years ago, I couldn't have dreamed of doing something like this. Anyway, so let's finish our bail. I like to use my fingers, so I'm going to rock the neck forward. So I'm just pushing it forward. Then I'm going to come to my center. And because this is such soft wire, I'm just going to start in the middle, shaping my bail. I didn't want a big bail because this is a very small stone. So now I'm going to move these to the outside. I'm not going to finish with it. I want to see where they're setting up. Yeah, I think I'm going to do a little bit more weaving. And this time I'm probably just going to sit with this on the outside. So I'm just wrapping this outside wire with this wire. And I'm going to wrap this outside wire. And I'm going to leave them on. I'm not sure if I'm going to use them. Okay. So I'm just creating some kind of cool dimension for my bail. You can do anything you want. There we go. We was just riding over that wire a little bit. And then I'm just going to use one wire now to close off. I think that should be good. I can always take it out if it's too much. So we'll just spin off one more time around this outside wire, have that wire coming up. All right, so now is the decorative time. Let's go ahead and take the tape off the back first. It's probably all gonna come off pretty easy. I can see that. I need my scissors. Well, back or front doesn't really matter because it's going to be double-sided. All right. So now we're going to start connecting our wires to the base of this sea glass, or if you're working with a cabochon. This is really great for just, look how pretty that's going to be. Isn't that pretty? So I've got that lip out there. That lip's going to stay. And this is my opportunity now to get anything that isn't going to smash my weaving. So I am going to use, I did have a dowel here, but I don't know what I did with it. Here it is. Sorry, guys. So this is just a little chopstick, and I'm going to really press this in to that dip in my sea glass here. So I'm just going to press it in. Really want it to hug it and shape it. Much better. So now we're going to start doing a decorative design, and anything that you want to do, you do. So I never know what I'm going to do. So I see this curve already coming off here. So I'm going to take advantage of that and keep that curve going. I want my flat side up. And I can see that it's turning on me. And I'm going to follow that with this one. Now you could weave your wire, you could twist your wire at this point. Anything that you're thinking of, you can do before you start cinching them off. I want this up a little bit higher. Let's see, and I think I want to pinch it in. Whatever I start seeing is where I go. So I'm going to move you out of the way for a minute so that I can really get in there and access that wire. There we go. Oh, I kind of messed that up. So I think what I'm going to do now, this is great, is I'm going to make this into a swirl. And I'm just following it around. There we go. Well, I even like that better. Sometimes mistakes or, things that you do that you don't like really work to your advantage. I like that. This one, I think I'm going to cross them over. And I'm going to push that down a little bit, just flatten it back a little bit. So now I'm going to connect them here before I start creating my decorative designs. And I'm going to definitely use this weaving wire I have back here because I got lots of excess. The sky is the limit. Wherever you want to go, go. That's how we learn. So let's see. Yeah, I like that. I like it crossing over like that. So I'm going to come on the outside here. I'm going to do a couple of wraps. Slide this up. Now you could also add a bead right here if you wanted, or several beads. And I am going to do 3 wraps. And don't worry about that. We're going to be popping that back in. I'm going to start pre-shaping my wire before I continue my weaving. And I'm just using my thumb. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And this time, I'm following the shape of my frame. Let's see where my edge is here. Yeah, that's going to look great. So I'm going to push that back in there. And if you need to, just go ahead and tape your piece in the back if you're worried about it falling out. And now I'm going to let it fall out because I want to work with this weaving. So I've got 3, and I'm going to come up underneath, and I'm doing a figure 8 again, but I'm just doing it with 1 wire. And I'm going to do 3 full wraps. And I'm clearly going to need to add wire. That's going to be so cool. I was hoping I was going to have enough so when I hit this curve right here, because this is where I'm going to connect it to the frame, but I'm not, so I'm going to have to add wire. When your wire, so this is for beginners, starts getting short, it's not the easiest to manage it, so if it's just too much for you, just cut some more wire. Okay, so I'm going to add wire, and I'm going to take it off this side. So see how that length never went to waste. So in reality, I'd cut 5 feet initially, plus another 3.5 feet. So this just goes to show you how quickly we can go through multiple feet of wire. So we're already 8 feet into weaving wire. Isn't that amazing? I've got some pieces with 50 feet of sterling silver wire. That includes the core wire and the weaving wire. It's the weaving that really adds up very quickly. So because I left off on this side, I just want to push that down. See a little bow in there. I'm going to start on this side. And I'm going to do 3 wraps. Actually, I'm thinking that's probably going to be too much of a gap there. Let's see. Let me see what this is going to look like. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to come underneath. Yeah, that'll be better. Got my wires here. I'm going to pull this one around back. This is why it's great to have all this open space while you're working. There we go. That's cinched in there between those 2 wires really good. And then this one, yep, is coming around here. And it gives you an opportunity to get in there and cut it out while you don't have, oops, you don't have your stone in there. Sorry, you guys. I'm going to be getting, hopefully, a new phone here soon that's going to have so many, or so much better quality camera. And I just cannot get past how expensive cell phones are. I'm just blown away on a daily basis. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Is somebody kidding me? Okay. This has taken up a lot of time, but I want you to see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to tuck this wire in. Shake off those loose guys. And you never know. You will never, ever know. Slide that up. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to connect whatever shape you made. we're going to connect it to the frame. So let me finish a couple of these, and then I'm so sorry you guys for being out of frame, and then I'll show you how I'm going to connect off. Okay, so I'm going to connect onto the frame, but I wanted to show you another really cool technique. I pushed my wires in the middle, and then I want to really create even more dimension, and I want it to come just from this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pinch with a flat nose plier as I'm rolling in on those weaving wires. And I'm not putting a huge amount of pressure, but enough pressure to really bend them in. So these are other techniques that you can use to create more dimension in your work. And you'll see it here in a minute. See that? Isn't that cool? At least I think it is. So now I'm going to get and you need something very sharp because you need to create a gap. So right in here, where my weaving wire is coming off my loose wire, we've got this opening, and I'm just going to open it up a little bit more. Then I'm going to connect it to my loose wire here to the frame. This is why it's great having all this open work for yourself right now, because you can really get in there and do that. When you get to the other side, you won't be able to, because your stone's going to be in there. You wouldn't be able to capture your stone. So I just ran it through. Want to make sure it's nice and snug and there's no gap, meaning there's no loose wire puckering out the other side. So always turn your work over. And I'm going to run it through there twice. Because remember, this is 30 gauge wire, so it's very thin. So I tend to want to have more wires for security wrapping around that frame. And it just becomes a part of it. That's going to be really, really pretty. So now I'm back underneath, and I'm going to wrap around this wire again now that it's connected. And I'm going to start my weaving pattern again. Actually, do I want to continue? Because this wire is going to get connected again. And I'm already thinking about the shape I want. So I'm thinking about it. And I'm thinking I'm not going to do any more figure eight for right now. So whatever design that you're doing, you want to make sure that you connect it to your frame. And depending on that design will determine how many connection points you're going to need to make. Because it has to hold in your glass. So I think I'm going to connect again. Just opening it up so I have some room to get my wire in there. Even though it probably would have, I didn't want it because it's such a thin wire. I do not want it dragging or catching on any of the other wires, or it's likely to snap. So I'm doing 2 wraps, and then I'm going to do a couple singular wraps, and I'm running out of wire, so I'm just going to snap it off. Or maybe I'll leave it. I might do something here with the swirl So I'll just do 3 wraps for right now. Okay, so let's get our stone in there so we can see how things are lining up. That's going to be really, really, really cool. Isn't that cool? So I am thinking I'm going to make a swirl here. So this is going to give you an idea as you're creating your shapes where you need to connect. So I know that I'm going to need to connect this up in here. Oh, you guys, I was out of frame. So I made my loop. So I need, and you want to pay attention to where your gap is, where you're going to be putting your wire to connect it. So you could weave this whole piece. I'm not. I am just going to connect it right here in this curve. And I think I'm even going to curve it up even more. Yeah, I like that. Yep. So I'm going to get me some weaving wire and I'm going to connect it to the frame. You saw how I did it over here. Right where this is arcing, and I'll be right back. So what I'm doing is I made 4 wraps on this loose core wire, and then I came through my frame, and it's coming out underneath, and I'm going to secure it 2 times to my frame. I want it nice and firm and tight. So I'm feeding it through again. Now for beginners, watch that your wire doesn't squeeze together. You always want to keep a loop. If you have a loop, it allows the wire to naturally curve around without kinking. So this is not tight enough in there. I can feel it. There we go. I don't want it puffing up. And I'm just using scrap wire now. So let's do 4. And I'm going to snap this off. So we're coming along, and now I'm going to make a loop right here. So I'm just going to kind of set myself up. I won't need that much wire, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. And that may be too much still for me. I don't know. I'll decide. Then I'm going to get my round nose, and by the way, I've had these since I was 18. The first time I ever played with wire, which wasn't wire art, and these are the best round nose pliers I've ever had. So I'm going to smash that tip a little bit. And I'm rolling off the tip as I'm putting pressure on it because I don't want a blunt end. Okay, just see how I'm getting a nice little point on that. And I'm just rolling the round nose. I'm literally rolling my hand like this off that tip so it's nice and pointed. Now I'm going to show you another technique. I love techniques. So I want this to have a little bit more of a sanded look. So I'm going to get my file. It's 180 grit. And I'm going to push this up right here, and I'm just going to file that tip. And it's kind of flat and give it a flattened out look, almost as if it's been hammered. Can you see that? Then I'm going to get my buffing block. And this is a 180 grit construction grade, so they don't fall apart super easy like the fingernail buffers. Those aren't worth your money, in my opinion. Believe it or not, a long time ago I had a nail salon, way before there was 2 million of them. So I'm just sanding that down. Now I'm going to get my stone back in there because I want to see how much of a loop I want to make, how much of it do I want to cover the stone, and I'm definitely going to be closing that in. So I'm actually going to keep my sea glass in there. And I'm going to turn this in. Then I'm going to stop. Take a look at that. I love that. That's going to stay. So I don't need this wire anymore. So I'm going to snap it off. And it's just a wiggle jiggle. And cinch it in. So I'm loving that. This is turning out so pretty, you guys. I really like it. And this beautiful green sea glass, Miss Dina. Thank you, darling. So sweet of you. I have a friend, a very long-term client in Florida, and she loves green sea glass. I just did a custom piece for her in sterling and sea glass, and it was a, was it lavender or aqua? I think it was aqua. Yeah, this one's lavender. So now I am thinking about what I want to do right here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to bring this up. And I think I'm going to loop it around. Just seeing this as I'm going. So I can cover that open gap where my weaving ended. So it just doesn't look like it's cut off. And then I'm going to bring this around. Watch that your flat side is staying up. That looks a lot better. And I'm actually going to roll this up a little bit so it even covers it even more. And then I'm going to make, let's see, I'm going to make another loop. But this time, so here's another technique. Sometimes you need to go way in the opposite direction of where you really want to go. I'm going to curl this loop in that way. So it's going to go away. This one's rolling into the stone. This one's going to roll away. So I'm going to hold my loop here with my thumb really firmly. And I am going to grab this wire and I'm going to swing it way up because I want to curl that in. So I know that it's too long. I don't need that much, but I also don't want to run out. So I'm going to go ahead. I can always cut it off if it is. I'm going to go ahead and create that little nice pointed tip to my loop again. So you see that? So I'm going to get my file while it's out here in the open and kind of give it a flattened look. Then I'm going to roll it in, and it might be too much, but we're going to find out here in a second. Could make it tighter in here. Actually, that worked out perfect. Perfect. So let's get this baby back in here and see where we're going. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Just use your creativity, your imagination. I'm going to pull this in a little bit more because I need to get this down towards the tip. And it is just a wee bit long, so I'm going to snug it in even more. Now I'm going to connect this loop to this frame. So we have no loose wires having the possibility of getting caught or picked up. And I will be right back. So I connected my bottom. And now it's going to be a little bit more tedious doing the back because we won't be able to pop our stone in and out. But isn't that beautiful? And that is beautiful Hawaiian sea glass. Gorgeous. So now the back. I've decided that I'm going to move these to the side, my bail wires. So I'm going to move them to the side. I might use a couple more of them. I don't know. For the back design, I'm just going to press them in because this is such a soft wire. I don't have to worry about having a lot of grip. So I think I'm going to bring one in and one over, but I'm still deciding on how I'm going to finish off the bail. So for the back, it's the same thing. What design do you want? You need to support the stone. So we've got these wires crossing over in the opposite direction. We can twist a wire now, or which I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get my little handy dandy, if I can find it. Maybe I'm not going to get it. I have this tool, but I don't know where it's at. And it allows me to twist it really fast versus hand twisting. And it looks like, I'm sure you can hear all my noise. It looks like, I don't know where it went. It's a pretty obvious tool. So I don't like doing it with my hands. It takes long, but oh well, I'll find it another time. Okay, so let's go ahead and twist this wire. So I'm going to hold firmly here, and I'm just going to start twisting. I need a bigger jaw. We're just creating more design elements, more diversity. Normally I would turn my piece, but because this isn't attached yet, I don't want to use this as my twisting. I'm just going to do it a little bit at a time. So we've got that. And now I'm just thinking about what I want to do for design again. I'm going to just start shaping this to the frame. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I want to do here. I'm still thinking about it. And I sometimes like my wire to come away from my piece, meaning it doesn't necessarily have to line up with it. I'm going to move these forward because they're in my way. Now I'm thinking about this wire, where I want to go with it. And I think let's see if I pull it up. I think I want to make a loop again, but I'm debating on the direction that I want to go. So I think I'm going to go in the opposite direction, and I'm just going to loop this in. Yep. So that's going to work. And this, I'm going to swing way up because I'm going to go in the opposite direction with this one too. So now let's get this little bugger out of the way. I'm going to use my finger to create this shape. And I'm going to connect off down here and create a loop. And I'm not sure now if I still want that coming off the frame. So I think what I'm going to do is come in closer and swing this back. I'm holding my wire where I want it to stay so that it doesn't move while I'm manipulating it in the direction that I want it to go. This one is going to cross over, and I want to make sure my flat side is up. That's going to be really cool too. So I'm going to connect here and probably over here. So it's going to be harder for you guys to connect now because your wires are really tight together back here. So you're going to have to come up one to get into the gap space. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then I'm going to connect this off, and then we'll finish the bail. So I'll show you what I mean here. So I'm going to connect here. I haven't decided entirely what I want to do that yet. So let me get some weaving wire and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is what I mean. See, this weaving wire here, these rows of wire here are too close to the second wire above it. So we need to come back. We're compensating for that. And we're going to make a gap, holding our stone very firmly so that we can get that wire underneath it. And I'm just kind of lifting up on it. You see what I did there? Now I can come up underneath it, and you kind of want to loop your end. So you want to make a little loop in your end. Oh my God, my camera died. Did my camera die? No, it didn't. Sorry, you guys. I thought it did. It just got so dark. That is really bizarre. I'm going to have to lighten this whole thing up. I don't know what's going on here. Very, very weird, you guys. It just got super dark. And I don't have any editing software, so we'll see how this comes out. I'm going to run that through there and come out this frame. I need it to be a little bit stiffer. There we go. Do you see my wire coming through? I don't know what happened to my lighting. This is really weird. It's still recording, but my light is gone. Oh, we'll see. I might have to do this, and I don't think I can bear to do it again. I hate to do the same thing twice. May have to wait. So I'm tightening that. So now I'm going over 2 wires. I do not know what happened to my light. It just disappeared. My camera light disappeared. And I'm going to cut this end because it's too kinked. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm coming through that gap, so I need to move these down. I'm going to try to figure out this lighting situation, so I'm going to pause the camera and see what I can do.